If you don't have haters, then you don't have any fans. What I'm saying is there's going to be people in your life that are going to hate on what you're doing because they don't like what you're doing for one reason or another. And a lot of the times that has little to do with you. They don't like it because it reflects poorly on them. You striving to leave your situation makes them have to deal with some of their own excuses. So they hate on you because you were being true to yourself. You are being genuine in your outward expression. The same is true for your fans, people who admire and respect what you're doing. Those are people who love what you're saying. It's exactly what they've been thinking for so long, and they're glad that someone is going to take action to change the way that things are occurring within society or your own life or whatever, and they're allowing you to motivate them to make changes in their life. And when you're dealing with these two issues, you will find that you're going to have both. That is, it is impossible to have fans without you also having people that don't like you. Find any video that you like, and you see every time that you have a few, thousands, tens of thousands of likes, that you'll still have a couple hundred or a few dozen dislikes. That's just the way things are. So what I'm saying is if you are acting in a way to not offend your haters, then at the same time you're also acting in a way that does not allow you to motivate your fans. So you end up walking kind of in this middle line of indifference, which a lot of people feel good about because we have anxiety about people not liking us. We have an anxiety about going into different environments knowing that it's going to be a very uncomfortable situation. And when you're dealing with these, Dave Steward, he actually talks about just the integration of the schools and how difficult that was. And my mom's often shared stories with me as well that when the government passed a law where all schools had to be integrated, that separate but equal was illegal, that it wasn't, like rainbows and Skittles, that there were people very upset. There were Caucasians pulling their kids out of the school because they didn't want to go there anymore. There were teachers that were not performing the same quality of education as they were. And it was a very tough time for lots of people.
Haters will steal your time, steal your focus, steal your energy, steal the vision that you have as well. I don't spend a whole lot of time with haters. I want to be around people that are going to make me better. And iron sharpen irons. I want to be around friends and encouragers because I'm going to encourage them as well. I want to lift people up and want be around people who are going to lift me up as well. And so many times I won't spend a whole lot of time on that because it's a waste of time. At the same time, I want to give them hope as well. So by your example of continuing, regardless of whether people are hating on you, you give them back encouragement and hope and faith and something to look forward to as well by your reaction.
So for whoever that student is out there, you hear that? Replace hating with love and compassion. And that brings me to my next question. I mean, when you look back at your youth, and you grew up in nowhere, Missouri. And what is it about your youth that you would change? What is it that you would keep?
I would change absolutely nothing because I think that the challenges that we faced, and I saw some things that you only have to see in that kind of environment. You have to see it firsthand in order to appreciate what that was all about and how to manage through that and how to work with a broad range of people. If you really look at my background, and I've said this on many occasions, I was born in 1951. I went into the first grade in 1957. And Brown versus Board of Education happened in 1954. And so Clinton, Missouri was on a timetable to integrate the schools in 1957 when I went in the first grade. So my dad patrolled the town all night to ensure that his 5 kids at the time were going to go to school because the KKK decided that they were going to there was going to be some violence in town. And as I think about that, so I was the first person of color. There was another person of color, female, that we went from grade 1 through 12 in that school system. And so of the 135 kids in my class, how do I work with people that didn't necessarily look like me? And I've got to learn a lot about people just in general. There's good and bad people in all facets of life, and who are my friends and who are not my friends and the whole bit. And that helped me a lot in working with a different point of view, and how do you work through issues, and how do you not have a chip over your shoulder, and how do you be friends, and how do you ignore those who have other issues as well. And so I think going through that and the challenges that we face growing up through that, I think was very, very helpful in my perspective on people and how I engage and the friendships I've been able to forge and barriers I've been able to overcome as a result of that.
And you have to be able to say, okay, even though I'm not super excited about my haters and not being liked, at the same time, I also understand that it hurts me most of all. That you have to be able to look at the situation and say, okay, these people are hating on me because they don't like the fact that I am striving to be the best person that I can be, that I am trying to create opportunities in my life that enables me to change the way that my life will be in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, or even your legacy for hundreds of years. And when you look at it that way, what's wrong with having a few haters? Because haters, again, it just means that you are being genuine enough that they know enough about you to know that they don't like something about you. And if you want to be able to succeed and achieve the goals that you have in your life, you have to be true to yourself. You cannot live a life where you are pretending to be something that you are not. At least you can't do it for a very long time. Whether you're pretending in a relationship, whether you're pretending in your profession, whether you're pretending with family and other friends, whatever aspect of your life you're pretending at, I can guarantee you one thing, you feel very exhausted. It is very exhausting to use that amount of mental energy to continually say things in a very thoughtful manner that is not aligned with who you are. And what I mean by that is, if you naturally think something and then you have to say, okay, well, that may offend someone, or that may draw my haters out. Let me see if there's a way I can say it where I don't offend them, but I still can get a couple, amens from the congregation. And if you do that a lot, every time you make a mental conscious decision fatigue takes in. And I don't know the exact number, but let's just say you're able to make 100 decisions in a day. And after that, you start feeling really exhausted and you start making poor decisions. So you may have seen this within your profession where there's that 3 or 4 o'clock where everybody's just kind of tired, where people are grabbing for coffee or they're going on a little walk outside. And it's because they've spent the day doing something that they are not very passionate about. And it's unfortunate that that is the decision that most people have made, but it doesn't change the fact that that has an impact on your body versus when you read about the most successful people. Right, when you read about Steward and the way that he was able to build a $7 billion company, that's because he was chasing something he was very passionate about. And he goes on and he says that technology is so important that it's the future, that it allows us to be able to change the trajectory of our entire community if we just took a hold of it. And he said he started realizing that the problem wasn't as much as the jobs and whether they're there or not. He said a lot of it he started seeing is they weren't being introduced to it enough. So now they're trying to figure out, how do you introduce kids to the engineering and the science and the technology when they're in elementary school so that they can grow a love and a fascination for it. And then they can start taking advantage of these industries and these companies. And if you're someone who's saying, well, you know what, Dre, all that's fine and good, but it's still going to be impossible for me to find work, and for some reason in the community you feel like they are just being excluded. And while there's studies that would support that thought, it's more important for you to say, because something is difficult, it doesn't make it impossible. And so what I mean by that is if you have to maybe work somewhere for 3, 4, 5 years and you're overlooked for 1 out of every 5 promotions, that's fine. Your job is to absorb as much information, to learn as much techniques so that you can then be like Dave Steward and open your own tech company. The goal is not for you to stay in an oppressive environment for 30, 40, or 50 years. You're putting in the work to be able to gather the skill set and the knowledge that then allows you to invest in yourself, because that's the way I look at it. If you're doing something for 3, 4, 5, even 10 years, I look at that as an investment in yourself. And you're never going to get a better return on your investment than investing in yourself. And as you know, my word is opportunity. So once you have that knowledge and that information, what opportunities have you now opened for yourself? You open opportunities to go to a different company, to create your own company, where now you have lots of options. Too often, people, when things are difficult in the beginning, we end up leaving before the opportunities actually present themselves. And as a result, we end up kind of flatlining where we're constantly in that same environment in multiple different companies. If you want to change that projection, then you have to be able to invest enough in your knowledge, in your skill set, and in your overall mindset that enables you to change that the next time around. As I've always said, the world that we have created today is exactly based on the mindset that we have built so far. And if we want to change something about our future, we have to change something about our present. And so when you invest in yourself, in your knowledge and your understanding in those interactions, you'll realize that allowing a hater, someone who is just not a fan of what you're doing, to rent any space in your mind where it creates those feelings of anxiety that causes you to not take action, what you're really doing is you're prolonging that prison sentence because you are not allowing yourself to break through that opposition. When you invest the proper amount of time where you now have positioned yourself in a way that you can make sure that the next go around, you'll be either a higher level up where you don't have to deal with as much nonsense, or whether you start your own company with a group of friends, whatever that looks like, you may have realized that there is a problem, that there's a disconnect, and that you're able to solve that problem. The key that you'll find most common among millionaires is they have a mindset that looks to solve problems. Stop looking for problems to explain why things are the way they are, and start looking for solutions to explain why things could be the way that they could be. It's very important that you focus on the solution in all aspects of life. There are plenty of problems. Scripture says not to worry because each day has enough trouble of its own. So it's very important for you to start looking at the solutions because there will always be a problem. And if you're always focused on the problem, then it's going to create more anxiety because now you're focusing on the worst case scenario, which is usually a very, very awful situation that we allow ourselves to create. But when you think instead a little bit more realistic, like what is most likely to happen? Not what is that 2% chance of happening, but what is most likely to happen? In the case of your haters and the stress that creates in a lot of people's lives, the most likely thing to happen is you're going to have some people that you'd have been miserable if they were in your life a second longer, they're going to leave. And on the other end, you're going to have people who would make every day the best day of your life. They're going to come in. That's the most realistic thing that's going to happen. You are not going to have where everybody is going to hate what you're saying, but you will find that the people who do dislike it, as long as you're being genuine with yourself, they have just kind of self-selected themselves out of your life, which I would be thankful for. I'd be like, thank you very much. This obviously would have been a very draining relationship. Thank you for doing me that solid. Like, I really appreciate it. And if you look at each aspect that way, it's going to help you when you're dealing with that anxiety and those overall fears. Because one, you're being realistic, but two, you're also being grateful in the sense that this has opened the door for me to realize that the people who are leaving and my haters, that is a good thing. And then three, you're going to be proud of yourself for taking action. You're like, look, if you don't take action, then the fear gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the haters get louder and louder and louder, where everything that you do to make them happy, they're going to demand more of you. And you're going to slowly feel yourself dying inside. I've been there. I've done that. I've sat and I've drawn in my life tons of people that I'm just like, oh my goodness, Dre, what did you do? And it was because I wasn't being honest with myself and I wasn't being honest with them. The moment that I was honest with them, they all stopped talking to me. And it was like one of those things where I realized that my life was better, that I was happier for it. And when you really go through that, then I was like, okay, on one hand, I'm like, man, Dre, you really made things hard for yourself for a handful of years. And then on the other end, it was like, but I'm proud of you for standing up and saying what needed to be said. And your life is better for it. Be very thankful and appreciative. And let this be a lesson to not wait so long next time. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping this stuff in mind when you're like, are my haters, are they messing with me? Look, you don't want to allow your haters to rent any space in your life. Instead, you want to live in a manner that encourages others to do exactly what you're doing so they can all be free. And dare I say, it may even convert some of your haters into believers. Because the people that are hating, most of the time, they just don't have hope. They don't have enough hope to even conjure the idea that your success does not hinder their life at all. And in fact, it could help their life if they were looking at it from a positive aspect. But instead, they're looking at it from, this is going to hurt me in some way, whether it hurts the way I feel about myself, whether it hurts my bottom line because we're going to be competitors, whatever that is. Don't allow that to rent any space in your mind. Just do the right thing. And I do want to, before I even leave, make sure that you understand when you don't allow others to rent space in your mind, that works twofold. One is you don't care what they're saying, but two is you also don't think a lot about them. You don't want to be on one end where you're saying, well, I don't really get in discussions with them, I don't want to argue with them, but then you're always talking about them with your other friends. That's not going to help your situation. You want to be where you don't think about them and you don't talk about those issues, because they're just wasting space. They're wasting your time. They're wasting your energy. They're wasting your focus. They're wasting your vision. And you want to be able to focus on the life that you want to create. And the only way to do that is to not waste time focusing on the life that you don't want to have. I had heard it put in a very succinct way. Whenever you catch yourself thinking negative, you would just say to yourself, okay, I know what I don't want. What is it that I do want? And then you'll find that now you're enabling your mind to focus on the solution. And it's a very powerful frame of mind to be in. Always thankful for your time. Again, I do have a resource for you guys. Go to forecasthope.com/opportunity. It is my Lifetime Millionaire Success Blueprint, and it goes over everything you need to create those millionaire opportunities in your life. I'm thankful always for your time. I'll also make sure I put a link in the show notes. If you like what we're talking about, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate the support and the encouragement. Until next time, continue blessing on your journey to become the champion of your dream life. And as always, better self, better wealth.